Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the Getting Film Buff podcast. It's a podcast for film buffs, film nerds, and aspiring filmmakers alike. And we're just here to have a good time, talk about things, and learn from one another. My guest today is Robert Tiraphatna. He is a legendary individual, been a part of the videography game for 4 years, you said? Mm-hmm. He's currently working in the athletics department at BYU, filming for the women's soccer team. Super awesome person, good friend of mine, and excited to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm just glad that you found time, or I guess we found time in our both busy schedules.
Yeah. Oh, no worries, dude. Yeah.
So, yeah, I appreciate you for coming here.
Of course.
So, Robert, you've been pursuing filmmaking for 4 years now.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's a long time. You've definitely been progressively getting better with each project. I've gone back and looked at stuff on your mission, stuff from now, stuff from like in between, mm-hmm. and it's really cool. But looking towards the beginning of your love of like filmmaking and videography, what moment, what movie, what person ignited that passion for you?
Well, I've always loved watching movies. I think that's been a pastime that I've enjoyed doing growing up, but I never really got into making films or videos growing up until it was my mission, and we were stuck in COVID, and so we were kind of forced to do these things. And so I guess that was kind of the catalyst. COVID was the catalyst for me taking initiative into getting into film. And so
did you do anything before your mission that kind of gave you some sort of experience as well? Or was it just I got to do this on my mission and we got to figure something out here?
Yeah, no, it's definitely on my mission. I really didn't make any videos or really tried to get into the world of videography and cinematography. It was mostly just me as a passive viewer of films and enjoyer of films.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was kind of thrown into that world where, because of COVID, that I had to make these videos now on my mission. And so that's kind of what started it all, really. It was because of COVID. So, yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a blessing in disguise. Everyone's COVID did so many horrible things.
Right.
When you list, what were the blessings from COVID on that list, is I figured out what I wanted to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. Without COVID, then I wouldn't be here at BYU. I wouldn't be in the film program, and I wouldn't be working here. So
that's so cool.
It's really great.
Yeah, on your mission, you had so many opportunities to create videos, because at one point, especially after you were called a social media specialist, and you were making videos for the mission, and at one point you were producing a new video every week, correct?
Right. Yeah.
And so how did that experience shape your work ethic when it comes to filmmaking?
No, definitely. Well, it was during COVID, and so personally for me, I'm not a people person, and so I saw video making as an escape of me putting in my effort to do missionary work in a different way than what traditional missionary work that we see in the church and what we've seen in the past. And so really getting into it at first, it became, I don't know, just more of something fun to do to pass the time. But then as I saw it as an instrument for good, actually, kind
of seeing the fruits of
those videos, is made me more ambitious, and I wanted to try different things. Even though my lack of knowledge, I was still able to grow from what I've had. And then just testing out different things, different types of videos and stuff, and just kind of playing around. It was a good 2 years for me to just kind of test out the waters and be more experimental with my work, because there wasn't any loss, I guess you could say, from what I did. There was only growth.
Right.
and so it allowed me to try new things and whatnot during that time period.
Do you remember what it was like to make the first one and how that experience was for you? Was it like was it nerve-wracking? Was it exciting? Was it kind of one of those things where you're in it and you're just sitting there, wow, this is what I want to do?
Right.
Or was it just kind of like, this is fine?
No, yeah. My first video that we did, I worked on with a couple of the other missionaries I was with. And it was a parody video of the song from The Greatest Showman.
Mm-hmm. It's the greatest book.
Yeah, the greatest book. And like when I look back at it, it's like really cringy and it's funny. And of course, like you have to be able to laugh at your work, right? Like the first thing, like project that you work on is not always going to be like the greatest. You have to start somewhere, and so
yeah, you're not Orson Welles with Citizen Kane.
Yeah, no, definitely. You can't be pulling off these really great films as your first project.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so working on it, it was like I said, something that like it helped us pass the time and we had fun with it. And then like we saw like a little bit of like popularity with it, and so we're like, oh, okay, you know, this is like something we could continue like working on and doing. And as I like went on to my next project and then the project after that, I was like, okay, yeah, now we're like cooking, like now
getting in the groove,
getting into it. And so it like became something that I was like, okay, yeah, this is like something that I want to like keep on doing. And as I did that, then I'm like, okay, now like I need to invest in myself because I'm like really enjoying this and this could potentially lead to something.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like, okay, I need to get my own equipment, maybe get like learn some different programs and stuff, and mentors. I got what really helped me out at first was the full-time filmmaker like online course.
Where's that at?
So yeah, it's just online. It was started out by this dude named Parker Walbeck.
Okay.
And so that's how I started out. Was I would like go on YouTube and look up like some of his videos, and they're pretty like basic, like learning about like color temperature and like aperture and like all these simple tasks and stuff. Just on YouTube that he had for free. And so like learning all that stuff, I was like, okay, cool. Like I want to like build more. And so like I got his online course, and that like took me up another step. And so just investing in myself and my education, my equipment, it really helped me just more and more steps to getting to where I am.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And in your videos that you've made, your style of cinematography, which is what you're focusing on, correct?
Right.
It's super clean. It's very soft, and it honestly has this very dreamlike quality to it, in my opinion. And so I'm going to list a few different elements of a shot, and I want you to explain how you like to use it. Okay. All right. Light.
Yeah. So mostly if I have like control of lighting, and I've now starting to become more aware of lighting too. I think starting out, I didn't really know like the camera settings to like, I was like, okay, this looks good. But I think with outside light, I just love overcast. And when I shoot my weddings and like there's overcast that day, I'm like, oh, this is great. But then like the bride's like, oh, this sucks. But I'm like, you know, it's nice. Like, trust me, like the lighting's gonna look really great. And so like golden hour and things like that. When I'm shooting inside, I want to make sure that, and most of the time there isn't always access to equipment and stuff like that. But I usually just have my key light, 45 degrees, looking down, getting that nice Rembrandt lighting, and then a hair light. That's just a very simple, like, if I did, like, interviews and stuff like that, just more of, like, talking head stuff, that's kind of what I would use for lighting. Yeah.
Nice. What about color?
Colors. Honestly, for me, I'm still learning more and more about colors. And, like, at first, I really heavily relied on, like, the saturation, you know? It's like, oh, let's pump in more color, saturation. But I'm beginning to learn now, like, there's things that, like, help with when doing color correcting, and then also the grading of your footage too, and each cinematographer, each editor has their look that they want. But for me, I say I like to keep the colors like true to color, unless there's like a specific mood that I'm going for. But I do try to keep things more to color, like true to color.
Right. You don't want to change things too much.
Not too drastically.
Kind of like emphasize what's there.
Right, yeah. Okay. And just make it pop, but without it being like overbearing.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. What about subject placement, like in the frame?
Yeah, so rule of thirds, it's a big thing.
Classic.
And it's very simple too. And I think as long as you're intentional with your placement and kind of like what you're going for, then you're able to make like really beautiful shots. With your composition is really important. And especially like things in the foreground and the background, and kind of like what you want to like stick out. I think whenever I do placement of my subjects, I'm always trying to make sure that there's always some type of foreground and some type of background, to kind of give that subject, to pop, while we have like these other elements into it rather than just a flat picture. So,
and that kind of leads it right into the next one, background. How do you like to use backgrounds?
Yeah, so depending on like what the background is, for like weddings, I want to make sure that, wherever the venue is, kind of like capturing and making sure that the key elements, like you can still see in the background without it being too much of where you're able to focus on your subjects. And then with like sports, you don't really have control of like what your background is, but you can control your placement and kind of what direction, what you have in your background. And so sometimes like for soccer, I would place myself just at the right angle to where like if there's a goal that's shot, then you could see the goal, but then also in the background you could see the student section just going crazy. So I don't have to like flip to another
quick pan.
Yeah. It's just right there, boom, and they're already in the background and cheering and stuff, and so it kind of like adds to that that shot.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. What about lenses?
Yeah, so lenses, for me at first I was like, oh, okay, this 30mm prime, I'm like, it has a nice like aperture, the f-stop of 1.8 that I had, and I was like, and I just use that for everything, just the prime lens. But it's really important to be able to know when to use like tight lenses, when to use wide lenses, because like when you're really up close with the subject and you're like really wide, then it can look really weird. And so you just want to have like a good balance of knowing kind of your distance from the subject in what's the word I'm looking for, in relation to like what lens you're using.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Do you have a favorite lens to use?
Yeah, I mean, I love my 28-70. It's not a 24-70 because I wanted to save some money. But it does the job. It's really nice. It allows me to get wide enough shots that I need, but then also if I really want to get some detailed shots, some tight close-ups, I could zoom in really close. So
nice. So it's a good all-around kind
of all-around. I'd
versatile.
Say very versatile. If you're going to get like one lens and like you can only have one lens to shoot on, I'd say like a 24-70 is a very versatile lens. To start out with. Yeah.
Sweet. So I have a throwback for you.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
So growing up, you learned how to play the trombone.
Yeah, I did.
And occasionally you would sing karaoke with your friends.
Yes.
So with that musical background, how does music play a role in the films you both make and watch?
Gotcha. Yeah, I honestly think music is so important. Sound is really important when it comes to films and videos and things like that, because realistically, without picture, all you have is sound, and that's basically 50% of the experience as viewers of films and videos. And so I think, yeah, music really plays a big part, allows you to not only take in what you're seeing, but able to kind of mold your emotions to kind of emphasize what you're seeing as well. And music and sound effects play a huge part in that.
Right. Yeah. Do you feel like there's an emotional connection when it comes to music and the story?
Oh yeah, no, definitely for sure. Yeah, there is definitely a huge connection with soundtrack and with the picture.
Do you have a favorite that exemplifies that the most?
Honestly, like, and even before I really got into videos, I love listening to just like movie soundtracks. Anything by Hans Zimmer, John Williams.
Classic.
You know, they really like the Interstellar soundtrack, so good. And like any like the Dark Knight films, you know, Hans Zimmer does a really good job with sound. And then also too, I love La La Land. Really, really great. I used to not be a big fan of like musicals, but then watching La La Land is like, wow, yeah, this could like really.
This doesn't feel like just a generic musical.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah,
it plays a huge part. The music plays a huge part in that movie.
Oh, for sure.
So I think it's fair to say that you are a genuine professional wedding videographer.
In a sense,
And this I say because you have filmed over 20 in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So without revealing names, when you look back on those wedding videos and wedding shoots, what are some of the most out-of-pocket moments that you witnessed either from the bride, the groom, or their families?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Honestly, they've all been relatively tame. Oh no. There's this one. So it's towards the end of the reception. We're getting the getaway car ready. So I want to get some footage of that. Walk outside. This thing's just covered in all the just crazy things, unimaginable things. You know, there's condoms everywhere.
Of course.
Very explicit things drawn on the car.
Right,
a lot of explicit things that are written on the car.
Classy.
And I was like, wow. And like, this was an LDS wedding too. So it's like, okay. Like, I know you guys mean business. And so I'd have to say that was probably one of like, out of all the wedding films that I've done, like, that was definitely the most, like, out of pocket.
Did that make it difficult to film the getaway?
No. So I just cut the video at them just kind of, like, walking through. They had bubbles for their exit. So, like, I did, like, the exit walk with the bubbles, and then I just cut it there. Like, I wasn't even going to, like, put that in there because of, like, this is, like, classy, and I don't want my work to, you know, embody that, like, and so...
Which is valid. You don't want that on your portfolio.
Right, no, definitely not. And so I was like, I want like nice, pretty shots.
Right.
That was not pretty. So I definitely had to make sure that was out of the picture.
For sure. So currently, you are a part of the media team for Sarah Sun and Tala Osner for their presidential campaign for BYUSA.
Right.
But this is not your first rodeo with being a part of campaigns for BYUSA.
Right.
Because last year, you were a part of the team for Fritz Carl Moreland and Gabriel Abello, who ended up winning the student election. But I also know that last year had a few hiccups and a few incidences, which were not fun along the way.
Definitely.
So what about working these student campaigns has you coming back, even after having to deal with unjust scrutiny and controversy?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I'd say, like, this election is no different than last year's election. I'd say even more so, the stakes are higher, it's a lot more intense, and a lot of the backlash that our team has received has been far greater than what we did last year.
Really?
Too. Yeah, and it's been kind of interesting to deal with, and, like, going into it, I expected, like, oh, yeah, there's going to be, like, some pushback, not just from other candidates, but also from the organization, the BYUSA itself. And so going into that, I was like, okay, we like need to be a lot more prepared and make sure we're able to work on like make sure we read the handbook so we know like what rules we need to follow to make sure. But even with that, following those rules, there's a lot of ambiguity that comes with it, and it's more of like a lack of being precise. Kind of what the director of the office said was that it was more about the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law, but that kind of made our jobs a lot harder to know exactly what we could do,
Where the line was.
And so, and then when we do things and then they put an ambiguous like rule that it's not in the handbook, but it's, more follows the spirit of the law, it's a lot harder for us to work with that. But we manage, and we kind of get back on our feet whenever we kind of face those tough things. And, I'd say from our social media, like it's looking really promising for us, but it's, in years past, there have been candidates that have had a leap with their social media platforms that didn't end up winning. And so I think this year, I've learned a lot from the last year's campaign, and so bringing everything that I learned from that and kind of amplifying and doing things, and also using experiences outside of last year's election too, and incorporating it into this year's campaign.
Right.
Has really helped a lot too.
Yeah, for sure. And I bet that was a huge learning experience for just like general filmmaking as well. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned that you can apply to just general filmmaking that you have, or I guess that you've learned from doing these campaigns?
Yeah, I think really because the whole campaign experience, it's really, and the thing that both teams that I've worked on, is really capturing the voice of the students. And so we filmed a lot of students and heard a lot of their experiences, a lot of sit down, talking head videos. And one thing is like, well, with lighting, I've worked in the studio, and so kind of like testing that out first. I think that was like my first time really working in a studio. And then also really being able to know how to ask the right questions for the subjects too, because sometimes it's hard, they don't know where to start, and so if you kind of like lead them on that path, then they're able to share a lot of things that are really impactful, and being able to capture those things too. And I think that's what a lot of filmmaking is capturing those stories and experiences, and being able to share that through the medium of film.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one thing that I really learned too, and I like that has helped me with like filmmaking. And for me, I was also using that campaign for my project to get into the film program.
Right.
And so although it had like a happy ending, right, I was still just capturing moments even though I didn't know what the end result was going to be, and being able to kind of adjust depending on what that result was.
Right.
And so it ended up being really good.
And it worked out?
Yeah.
You got in?
Yeah.
My turn will be next.
No, definitely for sure.
Yeah. And that's so interesting. Like this whole experience has been able to teach you a lot about how you can do your lighting better. But I'm sure this has been an experience that teaches you how to apply yourself in completely different aspects of filmmaking, whether it be
definitely.
producing, whether it be directing, because you have to work with people on camera, or whether it be with your editing. How do you feel like you've improved in those categories as well?
Yeah, definitely for sure. Like for me, my focus is cinematography, but when you work with subjects, and especially like in a documentary setting, you have to be able to direct if there isn't that role already filled. And of course, with our campaign, we didn't have someone to do that. We had a social media manager, but there are other things, roles that I needed to do so that I could be able to accomplish and get, the shots that I needed. Like we didn't have like a gaffer, or I was kind of like the all-in-one and I had to fill in all those roles myself. And so it really helped me be able to like kind of a little bit get on my shell, especially since for me, I'm like I said, not a very big people person, and so like I'll do the work that I need to do. But when it comes to interacting with the subjects and things like that, that kind of helped me get out of my shell and being able to direct and kind of help them know what to say and kind of the direction that we're leading towards.
Yeah. Do you feel like that would help you? Because I know we've talked about it in the past of like, what would you want to do? And you want to do more like documentary style stuff. Do you feel like that would help you going forward, trying to like kind of work that into your making of documentaries and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely for sure. And like the DP talks directly with the director,
Right.
and so being able to communicate and having your inputs of what you want to be shown, because you're really the one in charge of the picture, and then you are the one that communicates that with the director, and
Right.
you guys collaborate.
You guys are
on-
co-creators of this story.
Right.
The director focusing more on like the actor's performance, and
Right.
on the story itself, and you're trying to convey that visually, like convey the same story but through visual means.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of like one thing that I've kind of seen is being able to communicate and know exactly what we want, and how we could make that happen.
Yeah, that's awesome for sure. So you've done a lot of things. You've put your hands in a lot of different bowls,
Right.
or a lot of different baskets, whatever the phrase is.
Right.
So you've done vlogs, you've done film reels, you've done weddings, you've done music videos, you've done short documentaries. What do you want to do next?
Yeah, I mean, right now my current job with BYU Athletics has really gotten me into the sports videography. Just one more thing, and each thing is its own different beast, and so you have to be able to learn the kind of the skills for each one. And working for the athletic department at BYU has kind of like helped me gain more experience. That can also be applied to a lot of other realms of filmmaking that I've kind of had my hands on. And so I think that's one thing that I am really working on right now is, with my current job with sports videography. And then also really a lot of like, I've been helping out. So I think one important thing really is getting into filmmaking is really finding a mentor to kind of help you with that. And so, it was good to have, start out with like an online course learning, but
Right.
you can only get so much out of that. And so I was able to find a mentor here in Utah, Vincent Polina. And so at first I worked on like a couple of like music videos for him. Wasn't paid, but I just wanted to get that experience.
Right.
And then after getting that experience, like he saw, the value that I had, and so he hired me on onto more shoots, more music videos, more commercials, and things like that. And so being able to work on those commercials too, like it's a form of not necessarily documentary, but nonfiction, and you're kind of like trying to present something, some
Right.
product or something like that to the audience. And so like commercial work too has been like really fun work to do.
Yeah.
As with the other projects that I've
And it teaches you a lot too. I mean, like I'm the kind of person like I'm just want to be a sponge. Like I'm like I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. I have something that I want to do.
Right.
But like in the meantime, I'm just ready to learn.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that mentality is like showing forth in like how you have put your hand in every basket. You're
Right.
like trying a lot of different things and any opportunities that open. So I'm curious. We haven't like talked about Vincent. You told me about Vincent and I asked you about him. How were you able to like network with Vincent, and how has networking played into like your ability to have opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of opportunities since working with Vincent. It kind of started out with one of my friends who Vincent films their dance videos. She kind of like put in a word for me, and so he followed me and saw my work, and he like was like, yeah, this looks great. And then I was like, hey, like if you need help on any like shoots or anything, like I'm more than willing to learn. He's like, yeah, come on over. And so starting out at first, it was a lot of dance videos that I helped on set and mostly setting up lights. But I think even during that period of time, I was able to learn a lot of things about lighting, especially in using lighting equipment and like professional lighting equipment too. And so being able to set that up and be efficient and know exactly what he wants for his pictures kind of helps me see, like when I work on projects, how I want things to look. And so with working with Vincent, I've been able to work on a lot of different shoots, and it's honestly been great. Yeah, we did this one take for this singer that he works with, and he was on The Voice, and so he does work for them, and it's just been interesting to help with that, and it's honestly a lot of fun, especially when someone's passionate about a project.
Oh yeah.
Then like you begin to be passionate in that, and so I was actually he offered me there's a job tomorrow for the I don't know if you know this group it's called Gentry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So he's a camera op for them, and he's like, if you can, like, come and like work for that shoot. Sadly, I'm working for athletics, but he gives me a lot of opportunities, like depending on my schedule. He has this list that he goes through, and so if he can't get one person, he'll go down the list and stuff. And the more you've worked with him, the higher you're on his list.
The more he likes you. I mean, and I feel like the more you work with a person, the more your own personality kind of shows. The more your work ethic and your personality combine. Like if you're a hard worker and a cool guy, which you are, because we've worked together,
Right.
Not on films.
Right.
That's unrelated, but like when you are both of those things, you're able to do. More doors just open. They just do.
Definitely, for sure. And like I'd say like Vincent, like because he's always trying to get more people to work with him, and because everyone gets busy and people fade out of the list.
And it's good to have a big network as well.
Definitely. He has a huge network. But it's interesting to see, like, whenever he's like, oh, this person reached out to me. Do you think they'd be like a good fit? Or when we have a new person on set that's helping, like we kind of see like their interactions with him, and he'll be like, so what do you think about this person? And like it takes a certain person to be able to work with Vincent. Not to say that in a bad way, but like you really have to be able to
you have to gel with a person.
Yeah, you have to be able to understand them a lot better,
right.
Like vibe with them, but then also he's very like when we're on set, like we're on set and you have to like really know what you're doing, or else like because we have such a short amount of time on these sets, you have to like be efficient, or else like you're gonna get yelled at, you're gonna get cussed at. And so it was interesting. I was on this shoot for this music video with him, and we had a couple of new people on the set, and so he's asking for where the spotlight was, and so we had our headset so like we could hear everything, and they just couldn't find the spotlight for the light, and so they like we couldn't find it here, we couldn't find it there, and then Vincent, I could tell, was getting frustrated, and so like I stopped what I was doing and I was like looking around and I found it because they just didn't know what they were looking for. And so but it's interesting to see like kind of once you work with somebody, and like at first like it's you have to get used to that person,
right?
But then after a while you begin to like really know what that person's looking for, and being able to understand and be really quick on your feet too. There's a lot of problem solving that comes because there's a lot of issues, technical issues, or
just stuff that comes up.
That you have to kind of plan, or not even plan for, but be able to problem solve for, because they're just unexpected.
Yeah.
And
even to have that some sort of equipment that might be like, whether it be gaffer tape or whether it be like something to block the sun or just like stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
just have some kind of equipment and be like, "Ooh, I don't have anything. I've got this piece of cardboard. Let's do something."
Right. You have to be able to take what you have and being able to work with it.
Yeah.
Even though you kind of have this idea of what you want, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of like one thing that I've learned working with him too.
Yeah, for sure. So if you had any advice based on all of your experience over the last 4 years, what would you say to an aspiring filmmaker that's like just trying to like, who's at the point of literally by himself, by herself, making videos in their parents' garage or whatever? Like, what would you say? What would you say to them?
I'd say it's all about repetition, putting in the hours, because it's not like each video that you make, each film that you make, it's a gradual improvement. And so if you think that, oh, I'll work on like this one project and then the next one's going to be drastically better, it's really putting in the hours and perfecting the craft. No matter how dumb like it looks. Even when I started working at the athletic department, like my work didn't compare to a lot of my coworkers, but they've put in the hours. And even though I've been in the filmmaking, the videography world for some time, when I started the job, like I could tell, like just putting in the hours itself, starting the job and where I am now, it's a lot different. And so just being able to be willing to put in the hours, even if it's not paid or you're still learning, you're gaining experience and knowledge that's gonna help you.
Yeah.
So just don't be lazy and just get to work. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Robert, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being our honorary first guest.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, just excited for you. Is there anything that you want to shout out right now? Like, tell the people what you're doing.
Yeah. Shout out to the athletic department. I think that's really helped me, and also my mentor Vincent Polina. He's honestly, without him, I've gained so much more experience working with him than I have when being in the program, the film program itself. And
There's
so
more on hands-on.
more hands-on projects and things. And sure, like the film program is great. Like definitely do it. But I feel like when I was helping out on student films and stuff like that, I didn't feel like I was being utilized, or it's more of like, I mean, everyone's learning, which is good, like to work on those student films, but it's even greater experience when you're learning from someone that's already like learned it, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of everyone learning together, you're
Right.
learning from someone that's experienced.
It's more one-on-one.
Yeah, more one-on-one. And so definitely find a mentor any chance you get, because having a mentor that you're able to gain one-on-one experience with will help you drastically.
For sure.
So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Robert, any socials you want to drop?
you could check me out on my social, R Tiraphatna. That's my personal Instagram, and then you could look up all of my films, mostly wedding films, on my other account, Robert Tiraphatna Films. So if you want to check those out.
Also, if you're getting married,
Yeah.
reach out to Robert. He'll film your wedding.
Yes, I've had a lot of inquiries. I don't do as much advertising. All the work that I get from weddings are all referral based, which is really nice, and so I don't really have to put in too much work. But if you need a wedding filmed, I'm always down.
Yeah. So this is the perfect place for you to like shout that out, because I can link all of your portfolio in the description.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure.
Well, Robert, thank you for coming on. Thank you for everyone for watching, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Peace.
Peace.